VBA stands for Visual Basic for Applications. Okay, and it's like a programming module that Excel has Okay, you open a blank workbook, this window, and then if you punch Alt F11 at the same time, you should get enter into the VBA module. Okay, Visual Basic for Applications. And you see here the book where I am is called Book 1, so you have to find on the tree on the left to navigate where you are. So you have some sheets, you have some objects, can be charts, can be sheets, and if you click on them, it's actually empty. Okay, so you can make programming like a script. You can tell the computer to do some things with the cells that you have here. Okay, do a sequence, for example, copy from one cell to another. Okay, that's made by something called sub. We don't need sub right now, so I will. But another thing you can make, you can create functions which are available for, Excel has a few series of functions. For example, you put 3 numbers, and then you want to know the minimum of that number. So you can simply call here function, and for example, maximum, and you give the series of numbers. Sure what's happening with my Excel now. Let me just save it just in case. Save as. That's something else. If you're using VBA and you save it, you have either to use if you're working on the latest Excel format, which is this XLXSX, you have to choose the macro enabled workbook. Okay, but if you're working with, most of my files, they are from this version 97 2003, and there they don't distinguish between them. Okay, but as you are going to be working probably with the latest version, you remember to use with M. Okay, macro enabled. If you save without that, you will lose everything you have on the VBA. Okay, because of safety, they simply remove all the code that is on the sheet. Okay, so it has happened to me that you are coding, you have spending some time, then you save it, and then you lose everything because it's simply not saved. Okay, so you have some functions, many things that are useful for. If you click on this FX, you see many functions which are available. Okay, you have math and statistics and all kind of things, but you can also create your own function in Excel. So you go back to this module, and typically we want to save those functions because we want to make them available for all sheets in Excel. Okay, for all sheets that I have in my book. So the way to create this common repository is to right click on Objects, Insert, Module, and that module will be like common repository for the whole book. So every sheet, every place, will have access to whatever I type here. Okay, so let's make just to show you an example function, test function. Okay, so you have to declare that that's a function. Next, you have to provide the name of the function, and then you have to say what that function is depending on. Okay, let's say it depends on 2 numbers, A and B. Then when you click enter, you see automatically shows it's closing the statement. That's where the declaration of my function should exist between these 2 lines. And then I simply say, for example, test function, I have to use the same name of the function, will be equal to A plus B. Okay. So declare the function, that's the identifier of the function, and then that's the input. Then here I do something to do with that input, and then to write it as an output, I have to use the same name as the name of the function. Okay. I can also do create an intermediate variable, c equal to a plus b. Okay. And then the text function will be c times 0.1. Okay. And at the end, the only number, no matter how many lines I have here in between, the only number that will be output by this function will be this line. Okay. So let's see if my Excel is behaving okay. So I say to call that function, I either say test function, you see it appears now, or I search for it here, function user defined, because Milan has defined it, and I say test function with T. Okay. Takes a number A and takes a number B and gives you the result, 0.5. Okay. I want to discuss a bit about how to make subs. Okay, in Excel VBA, we are going to be using most of the time we're going to be using function. Okay, which you know already how to make. The function is def. You declare the function, the name of the function. Okay. So we say first functions. Okay, so we say function. We put the name of the function, and here we put the arguments, argument 1, argument 2, and so forth. Very similar to any other programming language. And then you say here the instructions that will happen, and then you click end function. Okay. But if you want the function to return the value, you have to call that value here. Name function will be equal to some operation, okay, some function of arguments 1, arguments 2, and so forth. If you have a very long, like a process that you have to compute one factor, then another factor, then solve, you have to do it. It's better to split it and do it in steps. Don't do it. Don't try to put everything in one line. Okay. But we also have something called subs. Okay, and subs are essentially scripts. And these are simply a set of instructions that I tell the computer. It might use any input, might not use any input, but simply a set of instructions okay, to execute. The functions are called on each cell with the FX button. Okay, we already saw the functions that we program. If we go to the cell and we press FX, then we get the function. Okay, that's the way we use functions. Okay, while scripts, they are run from the VBA module, or by making buttons on the spreadsheet. Okay. Another difference is that you have to save that usually in remember we discussed last time, it's like a common repository called called module. We have to save it here. Just make it maybe just make some more space. Okay, it's saved in a module. usually because I want the function to be available for every sheet, for all the Excel book. Okay, so it's saved in a module. Okay, while the VBA can be saved in module in the module or in a spreadsheet object. Okay, which in our case, because we didn't explore that tree very well, but this will be, you see, each sheet has its own object here. Okay, so you can save it actually in each sheet, in each depending on which one it's you are using the data from. Okay, but you can also save it here in a common module. In module or in each sheet. Okay, so how do we I want to show you just now an example, but basically we say sub and we say the name of the sub. Okay, and then we have, depending or not, we can have arguments or not. Arguments are optional. Okay, because if it's simply a set of instructions, you are going to say, for example, copy these values, run the goal seek. That's what we're going to do here. Then you don't need really any argument. All the arguments will be in the Excel sheet. Okay, and then you click end sub and doesn't return anything. Okay, maybe it just simply does something on the Excel sheet. Okay, so I have made here the goal seek VBA. But maybe we should take a simpler example first. You see, I went to sheet 1, that's where I'm going to make my computations. Okay, that's where I'm going to apply the goals. Okay, so let's take first, before taking the goal seek, I will take this away. Okay, just to make it simpler. Okay. Sub, declaring the sub, I have to put the name of the sub, and in this case it doesn't have any arguments. Okay, now I just declare, when I do that automatically, if you do sub name test and then I click enter, automatically it tries to close. Okay, it tries to be smart. Then I say a good way, that's the syntax how I address any value in the cell. Okay, you have to put worksheets, then in parentheses the sheet name, and then you have to put cells. This is the row number and this is the column number. Okay, and then point value. So this instruction essentially is retrieving the value of cell in row 2 and in 2, so that will be B2. Okay, so if we say in our Excel sheet, that will be retrieving this value. Okay, and it's going to save it in memory. It's going to save it in variable X. Okay, then I can do something with that variable. Okay, I can multiply, I can divide, I can do a complex operation with that variable. Let's see here, we just simply divide by 2. So we say we create another variable called b, x divided by 2. Note that I in this case I don't have to declare the variable, not even which type it is. Okay, many programming languages you have to say if it's X, if it's going to be float, integer, string. Okay, in this case, because I'm not saying anything, it will by default try to use like a generic type. Okay, which is not the most efficient, but it's it makes our life simple. And then what I'm doing here, I can also use the same syntax to simply write values on the sheet. Okay, so I use exactly the same sheet name. Now is row 2, but I want to write in column 4. Column 4 is D. Okay, so I want to read that number, do something with that number, and then write it here. Okay, that's exactly what this this thing is doing. Okay, I save it, and then to run it, you have to click here to the top, and I just click run, go back to my sheet, okay, and now I have that number. Okay, if for some reason you don't want to run it from here, will be something that you want to run many times, you can also come developer. No, first you have to insert. You can insert yeah, you can insert a shape. Okay, you can put, for example, here. You can give it a name. You say click here to compute. Okay, and then you right click on it and you say assign macro, and then you select the only macro we have. Okay, you see that the macro, the address is saying is in sheet 1, which is data, okay, the first one, then, and it's named GoalSeek VBA. And by doing that, I don't have to go back to the VBA module. I can simply say run it from here, okay, and it will compute. Okay, very handy. I guess if when you go to a company, you maybe won't have MATLAB, won't have Python, won't have anything. You have Excel, okay, and they hope you to do everything with Excel, okay. But if you know this, it can save you a lot of work, okay. Maybe you can go home early, okay, until they install MATLAB for you or Python or whatever. But if you know these tricks, you can save a lot of time. Okay, so now let's do exactly what we were. Is that clear, more or less? Okay, so I have one thing also is that I have put here the sheet name in a separate location, such that if by some reason I decided now to rename my sheet to data 2, for example, I don't have to go in each one of these locations and change it individually. I might have 100 lines of code, and I might be calling that sheet name in all of these 100 lines. So I will have to do it, and spoil my code. So I create this variable called data, and then it will, if I have to change it, simply I change it in one line. It's very good for error tracking. Another good practice is indentation, okay, because the sub does the first line, and then you indent, okay, and that means everything inside is part of this sub. Okay, that's also a kind of a good practice. But it will also, Excel is smart, doesn't want to make our life difficult, so simply if you erase it, okay, it will run the same. Okay, some other languages like Python, it needs the indentation, are indentation sensitive. That is very helpful if you have any problems on the sub. This also works with functions. Okay, you can use a debugging, run it in a debugging mode. Okay. The debugger, you first put a point where you want, so it will run, the computer will run up to that point, and in that point it will stop. Okay, for doing that, you run it. This is the same example. I haven't done yet the GoalSeek. Simply I'm reading value from a cell, I'm dividing that value by 2, and then I'm writing that value to another cell. Okay. So I just run, and it will show highlighted in yellow. That means that's the way it went. I told it to run up down to that place. And then to run one by one, you click here debug, okay? And you have to click F8. Okay? So for example, let's see how it works with this keyboard. Okay? So now it executed that instruction. And now if you see the value of X will be exactly what it read from the sheet. Okay. Now if you click again, once again F8, it will do the next instruction where this variable B will be divided by 2. And then that's the last instruction where it writes that value to the cell. Okay. If you keep the point here, when you run the macro from the interface, from this button, it will stop in the same place. Okay. Also, if you don't want to see anything in between, but simply you want to run from one point to another, you can do it live and press F5. Okay, so it skips everything in between and simply jumps from one to the other. Okay, so F8 one by one, and if you have another function here, it will go inside the function and it will do debugging of the function with F8. F5 has to have 2 points and then it jumps between point and point. Okay.